Hey y'all, welcome to the channel. Today we're checking out the genius of Napoleon.
He was creative, he was fluid, and he wasn't obsessed with control. Because life is inherently chaotic and random. Things happen that you never expect. You cannot control this.
Did he say that he was not obsessed with control?
He wasn't obsessed with control.
He wasn't?
Because life is inherently chaotic and random.
I would have thought he would be totally obsessed with control.
I've heard that there is a Napoleon movie coming out. I think Joaquin Phoenix is going to be playing Emperor Napoleon himself.
One of the greatest actors of our time, I'll just say that. He's brilliant. Brilliant. Excellent casting. Excellent Ridley Scott is a genius. Speaking of geniuses, Joaquin Phoenix is a genius. Speaking of geniuses. A lot of geniuses involved with this movie coming out. Makes me feel inferior. Anyway.
I'm always a bit wary of these film projects. I hope it's going to be accurate. The question somebody wanted to know is my relationship to Napoleon and why I devoted really one book to him, or he was sort of the main figure in the 33 Strategies of War. He certainly figures in the 48 Laws of Power. What is my particular interest in Napoleon? And I'll tell you, in this world, there are a lot of leaders and people who are so bland, they're so corporate, they're so cookie cutter. They're just like everybody else, right? They have no spirit. They have no drama. They just want to be like everyone else in the world. They want to follow what other people have done, okay? And in warfare, it's the same dynamic. 99.9% of generals are not creative on any level. They're just very worried. They're very anxious. They're trying to control as much as possible. And suddenly arrives on the scene a young man, Napoleon Bonaparte, who comes from a different background. Although his family originally has aristocratic roots, he grows up very poor on the island of Corsica. He doesn't have any privilege to him, no reason why he should ever be a general, because generals came from the aristocracy. The French Revolution erupts, and he's already in the military as a cadet. And the French Revolution turns everything over. And that old order of things where it's very stodgy, the aristocracy, suddenly the world is upside down. And he reveals very early on this powerful sense of boldness and confidence. And, we think of people being fearless today or whatever, or generals being great. This man was literally on the battlefield, facing bullets flying at his face in battle after battle after battle, earlier on in his career as an artillery corporal, later on as a general. He would lead from the front. He was not afraid of facing battle. He was courageous, he was bold, and he was incredibly creative.
I wonder if he had a death wish. It's hard to imagine being fearless in a battle. I would be so fearful. Bullets flying by me, I don't know if I would step up. I kind of feel like I would run the other way. Tell us why he was creative, Robert.
The source of his creativity was this incredible organizational mind. He had a mind almost like a computer in the amount of information he could hold. When he went into battle, he would get every single detail of that battle available to him. He had lines of communication from his lieutenants where real-time things going on the ground among the soldiers, among the foot soldiers, would reach Napoleon. So he knew everything that was going on actually in the battle and before the battle, all the different possibilities. He was the Western exemplar of Sun Tzu's idea of maneuver warfare, which I explained very deeply in the 33 Strategies of War.
Well, I gotta look that up. Sun Tzu Maneuver Warfare. Oh, he's the guy who wrote The War of Art, or The Art of War. The War of Art is also a great book written by Stephen Pressfield. I highly recommend it. Anyway, in war, the general receives his commands from the sovereign. Having collected an army and concentrated his forces, he must blend and harmonize the different elements, before pitching his camp. After that comes tactical maneuvering, than which there is nothing more difficult. The difficulty of tactical maneuvering consists in turning the devious into the direct and misfortune into gain, thus to take a long and circuitous route after enticing the enemy out of the way, and those starting after him, to contrive to reach the goal before him, shows knowledge of the artifice of deviation. I'm not sure what that means. If you set a fully equipped army in march in order to snatch an advantage, the chances are that you will be too late. On the other hand, to detach a flying column for the purpose involves the sacrifice of its baggage and stores. It's better to be on hand with 10 men than absent with 10,000. Thus, if you order your men to roll up their buff coats and make forced marches without halting day or night, covering double the usual distance at a stretch, doing 100 in order to wrest an advantage, the leaders of your 3 divisions will fall into the hands of the enemy. The stronger men will be in front, the jaded ones will fall behind. And on this plan, only 1/10 of your army will reach its destination. Wow. I'm the jaded one. If you march 50 in order to outmaneuver the enemy, you will lose the leader of your first division, and only half your force will reach the goal. If you march 30 with the same object, 2/3 of your army will arrive. We may take it then that an army without its baggage train is lost. Without provisions it is lost. Without bases of supply it is lost. Oh, the Napoleonic army sure had a baggage train, but it revolutionized European land warfare by largely living off the land and using rather little amenities like tents. These were highly situational strengths, certainly weaknesses in Russia. Modern land forces, on the other hand, had driven the support and supply dependencies to insane levels to be expected during effectively 75 years without existential hot conflict. Some brilliant little tactics there. Maneuver warfare. Fascinating.
He was the Western exemplar of Sun Tzu's idea of maneuver warfare, which I explained very deeply in the 33 Strategies of War. He was creative, he was fluid, and he wasn't obsessed with control. And that is the main thing that drives me crazy about CEOs, about leaders, about politicians. They want to control everything.
They do.
And you can't control everything in life. And that sense of wanting to control, like a Vladimir Putin, is the ultimate example of that. Comes from deep levels of insecurity. Because life is inherently chaotic and random. Things happen that you never expect. You cannot control this. The power lies in what I call controlled chaos. You let chaos into your system. You move with it, and you try and adapt it to your plans and to your strategies.
Yes.
Napoleon was the genius of that. He created a system where his armies could answer in the moment to what was happening, the chaos of the battlefield, the famous fog of war, as von Clausewitz called it. He could adapt. He could go this way, this way, this way, this way.
I'm sorry, who? Karl von Clausewitz, Prussian general and military theorist who stressed the moral and political aspects of waging war. He wrote a careful systemic philosophical examination of war in all its aspects. Oh, so he wrote a book called On War. That sounds like maybe an updated, more modern version then of the war or the art of war. Every time I try to say the art of war, I accidentally say the war of art. So this guy knew some stuff about war.
He could adapt. He could go this way, this way, this way, this way. He wasn't a control freak. And with this creativity, with this bravery, with this audacity that he had, for 10 years, 1796 to 1806 approximately, he led the series of the most amazing battles ever. And if you read about them, if you're a war nut like I am, there's a book by David Chandler. It's mostly I'm sure it's out of print, called The Campaigns of Napoleon. It's immense. It's this thick. It's like well over 1,000 pages. Amazing maps. Every battle is mapped out. Beautiful maps. Goes into every single campaign. Boy, do you really understand the genius of Napoleon when you get finished with that book. But those first 10 years, unbelievable. And then what happens? He goes into this decline. And the decline is almost as interesting as the rise to power. And it's very human. And it's tragic because millions of young Frenchmen are killed in the course of this decline. All of that creativity and that energy and that chaos, he now becomes somebody who wants to control things because the power goes to his head.
Right.
He's now an emperor. He turns conservative. He starts wanting to overpower enemies with artillery.
He got all that power and he didn't want to lose it. That's how it happens. And I guess he lost his genius. He wanted to keep control. I do remember learning in school that he tried to attack Russia, and the winter conditions were so horrible in Russia that they they ran out of food and like had frostbite on their feet. They lost their food and their feet.
He starts wanting to overpower enemies with artillery instead of overpowering them through maneuver. He does a campaign in Spain, which is, as they say, the beginning of the end of Napoleon, where the Spanish kind of grind him down and defeat him, just like the Afghanistans did to the Russians and did to us. And then it gets worse and worse and worse, and it eventually leads to his disastrous campaign in Russia, and it leads to Waterloo, and we all know what happens after that. It's a very important lesson that your rise to power comes from your ability to let go, to be creative, to let that chaos into your system, to be in the moment and to create something that is adapted to the situation. But then with power and success comes a conservative instinct that will destroy you. And it destroyed him tragically. If he could have kept that energy, that revolutionary spirit, history would have been very different.
That seems like a really difficult thing to do because that desire for control probably creeps up on you in your subconscious. You're not even realizing that you're doing it. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. I don't know who said that, but here's another example.
But he stands so much above all of the blandness in history, the uniforms, the pageantry, the weirdness, all the different battles. It's so dramatic. I really hope this movie captures the essence of Napoleon. It doesn't fall into the moralizing crap that movies nowadays do, where we have to judge people as good or evil, you know? Because Napoleon had a good side and he had a bad side to him. He was a human being. So I really hope this movie doesn't fall into that preaching nonsense that drives me crazy, that it tries to capture the full human being that was Napoleon. I call him the Mozart of warfare, the great genius of war.
Wow,
he completely influenced the future of warfare in a huge sense. The Prussians adapted it. Our military has followed his form of maneuver warfare.
Wow.
He changed the face of war. I really hope the movie captures that spirit because, as you can tell, I'm a Napoleon affiliate, or whatever the word would be. I love Napoleon. So that's my relationship to him.
Yeah, before watching this, I know a little bit about Napoleon, what I learned in school, but I've forgotten most of that. I would have thought that he was extremely controlling, but I guess that's because I know of his downfall mostly, when he was extremely controlling. But it's kind of interesting to think of him as this open-minded, go-with-the-flow, creative, this brilliant mind for strategy. When I learned about Napoleon in school again, it was all making him look like a horrible person. So what did he do that was good? I don't even... Centralized administration of government, a higher education system, a central bank, law codes, and a road and sewer system, many of which are still in place today. His wife Josephine bought up to 900 dresses a year, compared to Marie Antoinette's 170. And 1,000 pairs of gloves? Napoleon was known to deliberately spoil the woman's clothing of which he did not approve by spilling food or ink on the clothing item to render it unwearable. See, he's a jerk. Oh, but he may have been doing it to support the local textile industry and discourage the wearing of British clothes and fashion. So it was all for France. Napoleon restricted the rights gained by women during the Revolution to divorce by mutual consent. Oh, he had painful hemorrhoids. He hated cats. He had a good sense of smell. He had a horror of open doors. He ate fast. He slept only 3 or 4 hours a night. That'll drive you crazy. Oh, but actually he was 5'6.5". That's still pretty short. Napoleon liked to surround himself with the unusually tall soldiers of the elite guard who would have made him look short in comparison. Wow. Napoleon wore a packet of poison on a cord around his neck. When he finally went to use it in 1814, it had lost its potency and only succeeded in making him violently ill. Wow, so when he lost at Waterloo and was captured, I guess he tried to kill himself. It made him really sick, but it didn't kill him. I can't wait to see this movie. Learned a lot about Napoleon today. Thank you guys for recommending. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time. Later.